I don't know how many of you are familiar with that effort, which has been kind of put in a state of suspension. I know a couple of you may have been on the board at that time. I believe Mr. Fulton was associated with the district in those days. Glenn Lefebvre, I believe, was the director at that time. It was a great proposal. It checked virtually every box that the state of New York would want you to check. We had the support of the downstream Lake Abenaki Association, the town, obviously, surrounding towns, chambers of commerce, everybody you can imagine. The district was on board with it, and we were moving forward. We got resistance from local conservation organizations, park conservation organizations, because they were afraid that it would violate Article 5 of the state constitution and set a dangerous precedent for the use of state land. We took it as an article of faith. We were informed, and I unfortunately took it as an article of faith, that the dam was the property of the state of New York. Recently, it's come to my attention through some deed research that the conveyance was actually to the regulating district in 1988. You may want to have your counsel look at this and see whether or not my appraisal is accurate, and whether or not there would be. I brought it to the attention of Peter Bauer at Protect the Adirondacks, and questioned whether or not their librarian was sweeping this information under the carpet at the time we were sharing with one another the merits of the case. And I believe if the resistance to Article 5 were put aside, that there would be no resistance at all from conservation organizations, because they recognize the merits of it, and with everything that's planned by New York State with the future of green energy here and the dissolution of the use of fossil fuel and nuclear energy and so on, it's hard for them to avoid a resource such as this. So the reason I bring this up today is because I'm aware that you're in the process of examining the Indian Lake Dam and contemplating certain renovations to it. I would just encourage you to consider during the course of those deliberations that you might make it forward compatible for the installation of hydropower, because I would continue to hope that this effort is not a dead effort.
Okay. Good. Anybody have any questions for him?
I'm not sure I understand. You're saying that it was first owned by the state of New York?
No.
And is now owned by us?
It was, let me see if I can get the name straight. Back around the turn of the century, 1898, I believe, there was a conveyance of an enormous amount of property to the state of New York, and there was an exception made in that deed for the dam and for a parcel of property in proximity to the dam, which I assume is the house of the dam keeper, and that was withheld and retained under the possession of the Indian Lake Dam Association, whoever it was corporately who owned it at that time. The years went by, they continued to use it for various purposes, and in 1988, they conveyed the remainder of that property, which comprised the dam and the dam keeper's house and a set amount of property, to the Hudson River Black River Regulating District, not to the state of New York. And it specifies in that conveyance that it was not to be included in the forest preserve. Now, we never realized that. The conventional wisdom on the part of the environmental organizations was that it was the property of the state of New York, therefore automatically part of the forest preserve and could not be used for commercial purposes. And they didn't want to set a dangerous precedent, which they felt would, because since there's a lot of impoundments in the Adirondack State Park, they didn't want to set a dangerous precedent and open up a land rush on all these impoundments. And that was what stymied progress with the installation of hydropower at the Indian Lake Dam at that time. We had conceived of a dual dam system integrating the discharges from the Indian Lake Dam for the use of hydropower with the Abenaki Dam. And we foresaw beneficial revenue to the town, to the regulating district, and no change in the way that that either lake was maintained. Quite honestly and quite amazingly, the way the water is drawn from Indian Lake, it could not be more suitable to the generation of hydropower. When you're withholding water, hydropower is the least valuable, as I'm sure you're aware. And when you're releasing water, hydropower is the most valuable. And it was our opinion that if that could be sold on a spot market rather than just discharged on a continuous basis, that profitability could really be optimized to the benefit of everybody involved. And the town conducted a feasibility which didn't incorporate that part of it, selling to the spot market. It just gave a general release return of investment. But it was such a promise. People around town still talk about it. It was such a promising project. It would have been it would have cast such a brilliant light on the town, and been such a benefit to us as well as to yourselves, because I know the district has had a history of financial difficulties and stuff, and I don't see how it couldn't have. I don't see how it could have failed to help everybody involved and not caused any problems for the environmental organizations that were extant at that time, except for the fact that they believed that it was a violation of Article 5. If in fact it's not a violation of Article 5, I don't see anything that should stand in its way.
Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have any, I don't wanna put you on the spot, do you know anything about this, or?
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with the original preliminary permit application town made.
Okay, all right.
Would we have to come up with some type of, discharge, water discharge, like we have on the Great
That
Sacramento?
certainly would need to be factored into the entire development concept, yeah.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Smale.
I'm David Smale, and I'm wearing 3 hats today. I am co-chairman of the Property Owner Association of Day. We have about 160, 170 families in the association.
160 families, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't know that, David.
And I send out 20 to 30 emails a year. I have somewhere around 250, 260 people receive my emails. Okay, so when I'm sending those out, I'm alerting people. There's a dock floating down the lake, or a boat. We end up rescuing 3 or 4 boats a year. We send out information about changes in water level and how it's going to impact you. I'm also vice president of the Great Sacandaga Lake Association, and I am co-chair of the committee for water level control and water quality. We're the one organization that goes out and samples the quality of the water on the lake. Fortunately, the quality of the water is relatively good, but we go out and sample about 18, 20 spots a year, looking for potential problems. Over the years, we have detected problems associated with the sewage systems in Sacandaga Park. It's if we're not out there, they're doing it. No one's doing it. Okay? We Great Sacandaga Lake Association sponsors boat safety courses, and with the state just passing a law requiring everybody to pass the voter safety course within, I think, the next 5 years. Everybody has to have had it regardless of your age and your experience, you know. We're probably gonna have a lot more people signing up for our course. You know, so we're out there doing things for the community. The other organization, and I'm not on the board of directors, but I'm involved with them significantly, is the Sacandaga Protection Committee. And the Sacandaga Protection Committee has worked with the district for a number of years. I think they formed somewhere around 2009 or something like that. But they've been supporting the district, supporting different causes as it was going along. You know, we're working to protect the rights of the people and the community around the lake. You know, we're watching what's happening with the state changing rules and regulations and stuff like that, how that's going to affect us. We've been working to get the board of directors, all the positions filled. You know, I think you're struggling with limited numbers and being able to get a quorum here. Of course, if you had the meeting here, I don't know if we could get 2 or 3 more people at the table.
We'd be happy to try and squeeze them in.
Yeah. Today, I want to talk about controlling the water level on the lake. You can imagine the number of emails and phone calls I get over that issue. The first thing I would like to say the district does a relatively good job at following their interpretation of the offer of settlement. Okay, it may vary slightly, you know. Back in, I'm going to be discussing a proposal that I made back in 2008 on how we might change the operation of controlling the water level to improve, let's say, improve the operations. Currently, what the district does by following the offer of settlement, it kind of reminds me of the guy that's driving down the Northway or the turnpike where you see the sign, speed limit 65 miles an hour, minimum speed 45. Okay, and now you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you hit a rainstorm or fog, and your visibility is down to 2 car lengths, and you say, well, I can't go below 45, I can't go below 45, you know, and then you have the accident. Okay, you know, we're looking at what things can we do to recognize that when the lake level is significantly different from what the offer of settlement had predicted. This late fall, early winter time frame, we found ourselves in the January, February time frame, right, where we were more than 10 feet above the target elevation. You know, that would have been an opportunity to take some of the water, increase the storage value, and I'm not saying that would have prevented us from going over the spillway, but the studies I did back, I had a committee and we worked on these studies, and we presented a recommendation that basically, and basically established a new curve above the target elevation that is basically 5 feet above the target elevation. And however, when you get up into the late April and it gets clipped off at 770, 1 foot below the top of the spillway. What the recommendation was then, now this is a kind of a draft idea. I presented this to the district, trying to get discussions what to do. But what I ended up doing with my study was I did a computer analysis. It's actually a spreadsheet, and the analysis would have to be done again. We would have to go through it because the curves have changed since then. But basically, what it looks at is what was the daily flow on the Hudson River above the confluence? What is the flows, the lake levels changes and stuff like that? And I calculate, if we were to change the discharges from the lake, what would the end result, what the water level would have been if we had done that? And I ran that for the year 2000, the whole way up to 2008 when I did the analysis. And this last set of curves, the red line shows you what the water level would have been done is if when we reach the this action curve, what we end up doing is we increase the discharge out of the lake, and the limit for the flow on the Sacandaga below the Storch Bridge Dam would be limited to 8,000 cubic feet per second, and the flow downstream of the confluence would be limited to 20,000. That would ensure that we wouldn't be causing any damage to, we wouldn't be flooding Fort Edward or any of the other towns. And basically, if you take a look at each year's plots, what you end up seeing is we end up improving what level we end up with. But I note that if you're in a year such as 2006, where you get a large amount of rain at that, even following this method of doing things, you're still going to go over the spillway. Okay. You can't, if you're at a relatively high level in the lake where you have relatively a small amount of storage, and you get a large amount of rain, and you got flow coming down the Hudson, you're not able to discharge because you're going to flood down the Hudson, you're still going to go over the dam. Okay, so it doesn't prevent that, but it significantly reduces the amount of water level, the damage. You minimize, you improve or prevent the amount of erosion we're getting. This year, if I go by two different indications of the number of docks floated in along shores, and the number of docks being built by Brownell, okay, I would end up assuming that the damage to just the docks are in the tens of thousands of dollars, you know. And I know there's several staircases have floated down the lake. There is trees and erosion, and one of the problems that I have with the execution of by the district is controlling the erosion. You know, even when you have the barge in operation, it can only do certain things, and if the water level goes down too far, you can't do the controls. You can't do any modifications. There are many places on the lake where if you can't get in there by the water, there is no way to actually repair the erosion. You know, people have, you know, large parts of the permit areas have been eroded this year and other years. Yeah, we've owned since 1983, and our former owners bought and built in 1940, and they claim that on the permit area they used to play football out there. You know, well, now it's a sheer bank, you know, dropping 10, 15 feet, you know, a rocky shoreline. You know. So we've had this erosion. I know that we're going to get erosion, but if we were to do something to do this. Now, section 3.6.1 provides exceptions for when the district can deviate from the
This is the settlement agreement?
yeah, the settlement agreement, but it's I forget what the term.
Aggressive use of storage.
Yeah, aggressive. So this is deviating from the aggressive use of storage, and to do that, 3.6.2 requires the district to get approval from the DEC and Fulton County and Saratoga County. So what I'm suggesting is, and I don't know, is 5 feet the right place? I'm just throwing that one up, you know. But at conditions such as we had this past winter, when we were more than 10 feet above the target elevation, and we had a significant amount of snowfall there, that was an opportunity to say, hey, let's take a look at, I'm going to go to the DEC, I recommend that we lower the water. And if you're worried about the aggressive water storage, by not doing that, the hydro plants lost all that water when we were going over the spillway later on in the spring. You know, so you know, well, yeah, you're losing it in February, but you're going to lose a heck of a lot more come May, April time frame. You know, so let's do it smartly so that we're not causing the damage up on the lake. You know.
Very good, thank you. Always get an education from it. Thank you very much. Got it, sorry. Again, thank you for all your comments. I need approval of the May 14th regular board meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any additions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Report of our executive director, Mr. Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Find my report on page 31. Certainly entertain any questions on any of those items. I just also would like to note, this is our administrative assistant in Albany, Erin Dwyer's last week on the job. Erin's done yeoman's work with, just in my short time, things like our Facebook page, which has doubled recently its followership, the newsletter, which I was with some public relations professionals recently and recited what Erin told me was a 57% open rate on the newsletter, and that is apparently astounding. So that's been terrific, and you'll note in my report that we've had the state archivist Tom Ruller and some of his staff look at the treasure trove of documents that we have in the interest of cataloging and perhaps better protecting some of those documents. And Erin has been a big part of that effort as well. She's been extremely helpful to me from a personal standpoint in my getting up to speed with the regulating district's operations. So I hope you join me in wishing Erin all the best in her new opportunity. I do also want to note just a recent communique that I sent to the board members regarding the possibility of retaining a woman-owned business enterprise, Baker Public Relations, to assist us with some of our communications issues, and an effort to help promote and educate people around relative to our mission, the centennial this year of the formation of the Black River Regulating District. In my email, I noted that the board would reasonably like to take some time probably to take a look at that. I did bring a resolution. I would invite any discussion on that, but I would not expect there to be enough comfort level for the board to move forward on authorizing that expenditure today. But if the board would choose to discuss it, we can certainly do that as well. Just throw that out there. And also for the board's purpose in its last agenda item today, in selecting a date for the last meeting, I have also floated the concept of meeting later in July, owing to the fact that the tentative date is immediately follows the Independence Day holiday. The fourth Tuesday is the date I suggested, July 23rd. But by no means no pride of authorship, but I just put that out there as perhaps allowing for a little more preparation time, especially given the fact that the board does not meet in August. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I invite any questions or discussion on any part of my report.
Any questions for the?
Just I commend your effort. I don't know if the board is in a position to vote, but I think public relations for our agency would be worth more than we could pay in the end.
And I would just say that, Mr. Rosenthal, this would be an arrangement that would just go through the end of this calendar year. It would focus on continuing some of the great work that Erin has begun, expanding our social platform from Facebook to Instagram, producing a few promotional videos that would also be shared on social media. And I think one of the inherent challenges we have is reminding people that don't see a flood and don't have a disaster, what we're doing for them each and every day in our excellent regulation of the reservoirs within our jurisdiction. So I could share that draft resolution, but again, that information from me to the board was so last minute, I didn't want to assume that the board would take it out today.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Jim. Yeah. Contracts, resolution to approve insurance premium for July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 20. Mr. Farrar.
Mr. Chairman, my memo is on page 32. The resolution is on page 33. This is the last option year for Cool Insuring, which came as a result of the Compass Company, the consultant who developed the RFP initiative back in 2017. Happy to report that the proposal for the insurance this year The expiring proposal was $171,730. The new premium this year is $160,017.83, which is
It
almost
went down?
Yes, and it went down for primarily two reasons. There was, the biggest part of the insurance is the $10 million umbrella coverage. The expiring amount of that part of the premium was $77,739. They actually reduced that to $62,933. And they did that as a result of changing out the underwriter for the umbrella. That new underwriter reviewed Rob Fulton's dam reports, and then more importantly, the capital plan status of all the maintenance on the structures, and had a much higher comfort level in terms of the efforts we made to mitigate, you know, any issues with the structure. So the resolution on 33 we will insert premium amount of $160,017.83, and I present that to the board for their
$160,017.83. Okay.
So just one more thing. So now that this is Cool's last option year, we'll have to go out soon. And two issues. Compass Company and one other company have done all of the insurance consulting for us. They are not going to do that for us this next time around. So we're gonna have to find an insurance consultant, so that's why we're gonna start this process sooner than later. And then that new company will develop an RFP, which I would be shocked if it looked very different than the RFPs that have come out.
Are they going out of that line of business, or?
You know, I really didn't get into it, but it sounds like, yes, they have. So that's just out there. We'll certainly have something ready for the board soon, to that end. And board has any questions? The resolution is on page 33.
That was kind of initially come up with, and 83 cents, where did that come from? Like, oh, I can't bid it at 82. Anyway, I need a motion to.
I'll make that motion. I only will approve it for 82 cents.
Yeah. We have did we get a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Staff and committee reports. The Finance Committee report, Mr. DeWitt.
Can I have a resolution to adopt the Black River Association, Hudson River Association, and state share annual assessments for July 1st, 2019 through June 30, 2020? We should probably do each of them individually. I can run through them if you'd like.
Okay, quick.
Resolution to approve the annual assessment for the operation of the Black River area. We saw this a few minutes ago in the committee that for the second year of the 3-year budget term is $914,535. Need a motion to adopt that resolution.
So moved. Second? I second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution for the annual assessment for the Hudson River area, same second year of the 3-year budget, that's $2,993,725.
So moved.
Second? I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The state share in the Black River area, which is $250,000 for the second year of the 3-year budget.
So moved.
Second? Second that.
And
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
the state share on the Hudson River area, which is $776,530 for the second year of the 3-year budget.
Also moved.
Second? Also second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So,
That's it.
General Counsel, Mr. Leslie.
Simple and easy. My report is on page 34. The bulk of the report really talked about the Fedor Cold lawsuit. We filed a motion to dismiss based on basically a failure to cause of action, failure to state a cause of action, and failure to properly serve us. Before the plaintiff responded to that motion, they served one of the board members. So we will probably.
Who was that?
We still have alive our claim that there is no liability for the district to maintain the banks of the Black River downstream of our impoundments.
Is this court claims then?
No, it's not. We're not subject to jurisdiction in the Court of Claims.
Oh.
Pursuant to the Ryan case, which was a snowmobiler a number of years ago. Basically addressed several outside activity requests during the reporting period, assisted the executive director with a personnel issue, and assisted staff with several access permit issues. That is my report. If there's any questions, they'll answer.
Any comments? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Compliance officer, Ms. Rosinski.
Thank you. My report can be found on page 35. As a reminder, please review the contract status sheets on page 36 and 37 and please satisfy the public authority law requirement. We received our MWBE report card for fiscal year 18-19 quarters 1 and 2, and I am pleased to inform you that we received A+ for both quarters. ESD develops report cards that are reviewed by the chamber, and they are, the purpose of them is to gauge the success and efforts of our MWBE program. And while we don't always achieve the 3% requirement, they also look at our efforts, our reports are submitted on time, our goal plan, and the attendance of our meetings. Our online payment process is continuing. Anna and Sue and myself have received and gone through the training for the machines. We know how to use it. It works. We had a little trouble with access at first, but we brought in TAG and Elevon. We worked out the kinks in the process. Now it's just a matter of internally processing how payments will be, processed in our office. So it's going well. We should be up and running hopefully by the next Our summer intern program is underway, but they do work for the administrators, so I'll let him talk about that. At his report, we did start the 28th, and we had 3 of them, and we did hire, or intending to hire a plant operator. If you have any questions, if not, that completes my report.
Any questions? Thank you. Chief Engineer, Mr. Folty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report begins on page, oops.
That's all right, you can skip it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll come back. Oh, no, okay. Financial report, Mr. Farrar, my apologies.
Don't be too fighty now.
Go ahead, Rick.
My report can be found on pages 38 to 62. I will, as I usually do, focus on the district fiscal outlook highlights on page 38. We closed the books through May 31st. As I stated in the report, both the Hudson River and Black River area accounts closed nicely at $3.9 million and $2.1 million respectively. We have begun preparations for the annual independent audit for this fiscal year, June 30th, 2019. My expectation is that the auditors will come in July. They tentatively agreed to that, but we have not gotten a date down yet, so hoping to get that done in July this year. All assessments are collected. We're still trying to formally identify and bookkeep the Hydro Development Group's assessment for $11,000 and change. The big public authority reports are pretty much completed. Unfortunately, they're all linked to each other, so until we get the independent audit, we cannot deliver the whole thing as of June 30, 2019, but that will not be an issue. I think that is my report for this meeting.
Any comments, questions? I remind you of those cartoons where it says you only had one thing to do, and that was read the agenda, and I messed it up. Now, Chief Engineer, Mr. Folty.
Thank you. As I said, my report begins on page 63. Precipitation in the month of May in Great Sacandaga and Indian Lake watershed, approximately 140% of average. And our inflow to Great Sacandaga and Indian Lake also was about 141% of historic average for the month of May, at least through the 27th of May when I gave my report. In the Black River area, Stillwater had approximately 166% of historic average precip and an inflow of 150%. Right now, Great Sacandaga Lake is about 2.1 feet over the target elevation. Indian Lake's about 0.7 of a foot above, and Stillwater's about 1.3 above our target. Just a side note, through May, we received 83% of the annual inflow that we typically get in a year at Great Sacandaga.
Does that mean you have called for 80 and sunshine for the balance of the summer? I'm just curious.
Come August, we probably won't even remember this. So. It will be dry and you'll wonder where the water is. So that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, I think that 83% is an amazing number for June. Any questions, comments? Thank you. Area Administrator, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report starts on page 97. As Stephanie has mentioned, the interim started on the 28th. And again, this year, we got 3 great interns really helping out with the district.
I met 4 today. I think I met 4.
That was
Three and 1 employee.
One sneak in.
Yeah,
Oh.
and, Mike and the 3 interns.
Okay. I mean, I have trouble counting.
Okay. Let's see here, the staff assisted DEC with the buoy installation this year, installing the buoys on the Great Sacandaga Lake using our workboat as a platform. And staff is installing scaffolding at the present time at the access area to the dowel valves to get down into the pit at Conklinville Dam. So instead of going down a ladder, a fixed ladder with a harness on, we'll be able to use the stairway system, the scaffolding we're installing, so it's a lot safer and it reduces some of the requirements for a confined space issue. So it's a plus. I'd be glad to answer any other questions on my report if you have any.
I have to ask, what is the Ferlazzo footpath map?
Well, there's an issue over in the Broad Allen area with a 10-foot permit. The way he gained access to his permit area over many years, they went in front of this piece of property.
They presented.
they.
Okay.
All right, so with respect to the new property owners there in the front of their house, we moved the footpath down further, so they weren't walking right next to their picnic table on their private property.
Everybody happy?
Well,
Or is
everybody knows
nobody
Mr.
happy?
Palazzo is happy, so,
Okay.
but, it's better for everybody, and it is what it is, it's just. Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, John. We move to the resolution for the plant.
Yes, the board should have a resolution in front of them, requesting appointment of a plant operator in the Hudson River area. As I discussed before, right now, we presently only have 1 person at Conklinville Dam, Mr. Jensen. And for safety and workload, would benefit the district greatly by having a second person up there. With the new isometers and stuff, like I explained before, on the spillway requires 2 people out on that spillway at all times. And so I'm sending somebody from SFO on a daily basis to assist here with these readings. So we're looking to, we solicited resumes and interviewed 4 candidates. We determined that Matthew Ginter, Sr. is most qualified candidate for this position. And starting Mr. Ginter at an annual rate of $40,463, which is a step 3 to CSCA, base salary schedule as of July 1, 2001. I recommend, the hire of Mr. Ginter and board approval.
Any discussion, questions, motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
There's some questions. There appears to be some questions in his, under his current employment. There may be some conflicts, but I suspect
Mr.
you'll
Ginter-
resolve those with Mr. Ginter.
Yeah, he is right now the code enforcement, for the town of Northampton, the town of Edinburgh, and the village of Mayfield, village of Northfield. And the town of Northampton, which he is leaving.
All
He's
four,
out.
all three, all four.
You're right, all 3.
Okay.
He's
Does he
already
have-
put in his notice, and I just found out this morning that he sits on the town board.
Town board, yeah.
And, I will have a discussion with Mr. Ginter on making sure that
Is that?
he resigns from that position. If that's a conflict, I take it.
Well, he would be, free to, apply for, or submit a request for outside activities after he, is employed here.
Yeah.
And then council would be able to identify conflicts. I imagine he should resign prior to his employment.
I suspect so. When he's June 27th, so we have a little bit of time. Why don't you and I talk after this meeting offline and we can start to resolve it?
Sure. Okay, need a resolution, or any other board member questions or comments? Resolution for our next board meeting in, Northville, and the recommendation has been July 23rd.
July 23rd, Northfield?
Mr. Chairman, did you guys, I believe Mr. DeWitt made the motion and Mr. Rosenthal seconded the motion. Did we have a vote on the Ginter appointment?
I thought we did, yeah.
Okay, I missed it.
Yeah, I added my 2 cents after the vote, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, the resolution for the next board meeting, July 23rd in Northville,
I will move.
I would second.
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
I guess the vote
First and
adjourned.
second on the adjournment.